Welcome to Cinema Bites, your go-to for movie recaps in a flash. Big twists, epic moments, all in just minutes. This terrifying story begins on an empty farm far from the city. A family is riding in an old, worn-out car. They are fleeing from cities where the zombie virus has spread. When they arrive at the house in the middle of the desert, the house reminds Francis of a painful memory from his past. He gets out of the car first to make sure there's no danger inside the house, but the house is dark, dilapidated, and in poor condition. Upstairs, he hears a strange sound, and when he enters, he finds his father's corpse on the bed. It's clear that his father was bitten on the arm and decided to end his own life before turning into a zombie. Francis takes his father's gun and steps out into the living room. He tries to collect himself but hears his mother apologizing. His mother appears in a terrifying, half-dead state, apologizing as her body splits in two. Only the upper half of her body drags itself forward, with her intestines exposed, pleading with her son to forgive her. Francis has no choice but to end her suffering with the gun. Afterward, he buries his father and mother on the farm in front of his children and wife. Night falls, and Francis struggles to sleep. There is noticeable tension in his relationship with his wife, Iris. They find a moment of relief when they discover clean water, but Iris decides to return to the house to avoid direct interaction with him. Joshua asks his mother if they will bring their belongings inside, but she tells him to leave the first aid kit in the kitchen so it will be within reach in case of emergencies. Alone, she lights a cigarette. Francis approaches, trying to talk to her, but it's an awkward moment. Joshua suggests they check out a nearby storage shed to see if there's anything useful. Lucas, their younger son, is scared of encountering zombies and is terrified. Francis reassures him and promises to return quickly, telling him to stay with his wife. Joshua notices the watch on his father's wrist, the one that belonged to Joshua's grandfather. Armed with their only gun, they enter the shed. Francis calls out to the person who works there, but there's no response. Joshua finds a lantern and they try to open the chicken coop. When the boy looks up, he sees the worker hanging from the ceiling. He, too, had decided to end his life in his own way, but they notice that the keys they need are hanging from the corpse's pants. Francis forces his son to retrieve the keys. The boy is scared but approaches the corpse to get the keys, but the body falls on top of him. His father decides to let him handle the situation on his own. The boy manages to grab the keys, but he is terrified. He wipes every spot the corpse touched him. Francis gives his son Lucas a sugar cane and tells him to chew on it. The boy is amazed by its taste, but his wife is visibly upset. She asks Francis to come with her for a moment, and they step aside. She tells him she feels the shed is tied to the roots of his current trauma. Francis clearly feels uneasy and has difficulty focusing. His wife tries to help him, but he pulls away at the first opportunity. In the basement, they find drawings on the wreckage that reveal Francis had been abused by his father. At night, they all sit down to eat and give thanks to God before starting their meal. It's clear this is new for the family. Iris and Joshua exchange puzzled looks. Even Francis seems unsure of what to say. Lucas is still sipping on sugarcane juice, so his wife asks him to eat rice. He refuses until his father asks him to, and he complies. Joshua tries to turn on the radio they found, but he needs to eat first. Francis compliments the simple meal Iris prepared. She is shocked and doesn't know how to respond. She asks him what they will eat tomorrow. He reassures her that there's still food in the house, but she doesn't want to stay any longer. Francis tells her it's safer here, with clean water and protection, and suggests they stay until they figure out what's happening outside. But Iris doesn't understand how they'll find out without electricity or a signal. She recalls the news advising survivors to head north to avoid the same fate as Francis's father. Joshua interrupts, saying his friend Alice wrote that she and her family are heading to the mountains, but his father isn't willing to go search for his son's friend. He thinks her family might still be up there, but his father says they're probably dead. It's clear Francis's relationship with each of his children is different. He's strict with Joshua, but always shows love to Lucas. After dinner, Joshua sits outside looking at pictures of his friend until his phone dies. Francis watches him from inside, and his wife comes to criticize him for being harsh on their eldest son. At night, Francis is tormented by nightmares from his childhood. He has visions of his father locking him in the basement while he cries, begging him to stop. Iris senses his distress, manages to wake him, and offers him comfort during this difficult time. The next day, they agree the place is safe, but Iris insists they still need to leave. She tells him he's reliving these painful memories at night, and she doesn't want him to experience them again. Suddenly, he changes the subject, saying they're both responsible for the collapse of their marriage. In the end, he agrees to her plan to leave, and they decide to head north to find the mountain where Alice's family is hiding. Joshua says that Uncle Diego had the same idea, but Francis is surprised and asks him about it. His son explains that Diego had spoken to his mother before they left the city. Before leaving the city, Iris falls silent. Francis says he's not surprised. She explains that Diego just wanted to check on them and that she had contacted him because Francis wasn't answering her calls. This shocks Francis, and he speeds up the car until they reach a bridge filled with corpses. He stops the car. Francis says there's no way to cross, but His wife suggests they could move some obstacles to get through. He warns her that if the bridge is blocked, there must be a reason. As he's about to turn back, Iris gets out of the car to inspect the area herself. She walks among the abandoned cars and corpses, but when she tries to move the fence, a zombie suddenly stirs, groaning and asking for her permission. The horrifying creature moves toward her, and her husband jumps out of the car to save her. His shot causes the zombie to fall, but also alerts other zombies. Their children begin honking the car horn to warn them. The noise attracts more zombies, and they start surrounding the car. The children are terrified, calling out to their parents. But with one shot, Francis draws the zombies toward himself. Iris returns to her children, but Francis runs out of bullets. When he sees a grenade on the ground, he grabs it and uses it to escape just in time. The family begins walking back to Francis's childhood home. When they arrive, Iris reflects that they've tried this idea before. She walks away. In the morning, Francis quietly leaves to return to the bridge and try to retrieve the car. Meanwhile, Iris tidies up the house and watches her children playing. When he returns, he lies and says the car is unusable. Francis heads to the basement with gasoline, determined to start the generator, even with the painful memories that suffocate him. He finally managed to turn on the generator and now had a house with electricity and air conditioning. His wife was still unhappy. She warned him he was wasting fuel on this. He replied that he would only use the generator for special occasions. They managed to enjoy a rare moment together, something a little different. Iris tried to savor the happiness of her family, but she herself was on the verge of breaking down. Francis turned on the TV and began watching their wedding video. In it, Iris appeared anxious in every shot, smiling deeply in contrast to the bitterness she had slowly grown into. He moved closer to her and tried to seduce her, and together they succeeded in easing the long-standing tension between them. Meanwhile, Joshua, after charging his phone, was scrolling through pictures of his girlfriend. His younger brother came in, afraid of being alone. When Joshua yelled at him to leave, he reconsidered and allowed him to stay. Together, they looked at things and searched through family photos. Lucas noticed that Joshua resembled their uncle Diego. When they saw an old picture of their father, they noticed he had the same sad look in his eyes that their mother now had. Lucas said he felt like their mother was tired of him because all he saw from her was anger. Joshua tried to reassure him, saying that when people are upset, they take out their anger on those around them. Lucas then said maybe that's why their father was harsh with Joshua. His brother was shocked and recalled that their relationship had been tense even before all this started. Lucas said he hoped his parents would stop being upset and promised that they would be okay soon because they loved each other. In the morning, Iris told Francis he looked like a farmer, as if he were adapting to rural life. Francis admitted that all the problems in their marriage were his fault. He regretted all the pain he had caused her and admitted they wouldn't be able to return to their old life. He reflected on how all the previous worries disappeared when the pandemic began, and that he believed they had been given a second chance to come back together. When they went down for breakfast, their children noticed a change in their father's attitude. He had become more affectionate and offered them fried eggs. But when he went to get the eggs from the coop, he discovered that a dog had eaten the chickens. Francis tried to chase the dog away, but it bit his hand before running off. Iris, nursing skills, treated his wound, but the tension returned between them. Later, we see Joshua standing in the middle of the street, trying to pick up a signal on the radio. He managed to catch part of a message about a camp and called out to his parents. Anxiously, Francis said Joshua might have misheard and asked his wife and son to verify the information while he checked something else. At dinner, Iris couldn't stop thinking about the possibility that they were close to the camp's signal. She suggested they search for the car to see if it would start. Francis, skeptical, asked how they would cross the blocked bridge and reminded her they needed another route and a working car to travel hundreds of miles toward an unknown camp. Iris insisted it was worth trying and said they might find a doctor to help with things like the dog bite. Francis asked her if she really understood what was happening outside and reminded her of the danger at the bridge and what had happened to Lucas's schoolmates. She became upset and told him not to talk about that in front of the children so as not to scare them further. Lucas, still young, just wanted to live. At that moment, she felt the need to end the conversation and walked away, upset. In another scene, we see Francis working on the veranda when Joshua came and asked if they could turn on the generator, listen to music, or even try to pick up a signal. His father explained that the record player didn't have a radio, but Joshua insisted and asked what was happening outside. Francis reminded him of what he had done to save him and his younger brother, then challenged him, asking if he was ready to do the same for them. Joshua replied firmly that he would, so Francis took him outside, set up a target, and handed him the gun. The boy held it with trembling hands. After a moment of hesitation, he fired the shot. The sound startled Iris and Lucas, and painful memories flooded Francis. When he composed himself, he gave his son more specific instructions on how to handle the weapon. Iris arrived quickly and asked what was happening, noticing that he was pressuring their son too much. But under the pressure, the boy hit the target and then broke down crying. The sound attracted the first zombie, who began murmuring its final prayers. It was soon joined by many others from its congregation. The zombies started moving toward the family, and the group decided to retreat into the house. With no more bullets to defend themselves, they had no choice but to flee. They managed to take shelter inside the house, and the zombies stood outside, repeating the last words they had spoken in life. Suddenly, the zombies turned their attention to the locked door, causing Francis to collapse in despair, convinced he had condemned his family to a brutal fate. When the zombies began breaking down the door, the family prepared for the end. They heard the sound of car horns from the street and the noise of a crash that distracted the zombies toward a mysterious car. By morning, parts of the house were damaged. Francis went outside to assess the damage. The chicken coop was destroyed and the eggs were broken. Iris approached him and asked what they would do now. Later, we see Francis arriving at a watermill and finding his brother Diego, the owner of the car that had saved them. Diego said his wife, Hannah, had been bitten and fell silent when the topic of his son came up. Francis asked why he had come, and Diego replied that he was heading north but wanted to say goodbye to their parents. When Francis told him they were dead, Diego accepted the news and said he hadn't expected to return home anyway. He said the house was doomed and asked how long they could survive on the farm. But Francis insisted he and his family were fine. Without protest, Diego apologized for the past and admitted he had come to take them north with him, not believing Francis could take care of himself and his family so well. Diego's words upset Francis, who pointed the gun at his brother and forced him to leave, telling him quickly that there was nothing there for him. Diego didn't resist and agreed to go. But before leaving, Diego gave Francis a map, saying he could use it if they changed their minds, and decided to find him. Alone, Francis considered destroying the map. When he returned home, he brought some supplies his brother had left behind and lied to his wife again, saying he had been delayed helping someone. Later, we see Francis barricading all the windows in the house. Joshua quietly asked his mother how she was feeling. She said she was just tired. When he looked at her, he noticed they had the same smile. Inside, Lucas tried to entertain himself by swatting flies. When he went down to the basement, he quickly realized there was a zombie there, and his mother appeared. She followed him to reassure him. She told him that the zombie wouldn't be able to get in from there. She noticed that the zombie was weak and said that once it disappeared, they would be able to go outside again. Francis overheard the entire conversation and went out to look for another zombie. He encountered one, which surprised him by asking him to end its life. The zombie knelt and repeated the same sentence. Hesitantly, Francis raised the scythe and granted its wish. Afterward, he returned with the bloodied weapon, soaked his shirt, and called out to his wife, holding the severed head, proud that he had to kill the fast zombie that almost bit him. This scene frightened the children, and their reaction angered Iris, who demanded that Francis control himself. But he warned her that there were many zombies nearby and that it was very dangerous outside. He insisted that no one should think about leaving the house. Later in their ordeal, it was revealed that Francis hadn't destroyed the map. In fact, he had hidden it to prevent his family from considering leaving the house. A while later, he gathered the whole family and surprised them with a decorated Christmas tree to distract them from the grim reality outside. However, Iris began to feel uneasy again. Francis continued to act as if they were living a normal life, ignoring the fact that the world outside was falling apart. Lucas, with the innocence of a child, asked for a bicycle for Christmas. When it was Joshua's turn, he said he wanted a map. Iris, surprised, asked him why he wanted a map, and Joshua told her to ask Francis. He revealed that he had found a map in his father's room. Francis pretended not to understand and promised to get him a map for the next Christmas. When it was Francis's turn, he said he wanted another child, convinced that it was the right time to grow the family. As he spoke, he explained that they still had a chance to live a normal life, but Iris replied that she wasn't willing to live like that. She thought there was nothing normal about their lives and insisted that she wanted to leave now. She pointed out that they were barely surviving on rice and told him he couldn't hide the reality they were facing. The monsters outside had become weaker, and she was confident she could escape them. She argued that someone had to go out soon to find food. Francis then told the children that their mother was planning to abandon them, and that he wasn't sure she would come back, as she had never truly cared about them and had wanted to leave for a long time. Francis revealed that Iris had considered leaving even before the outbreak, which deeply shocked the children. He took advantage of the moment to force her to talk about it. Crying, Iris began to explain to her children that her decision wasn't about them. She simply wasn't happy in her life and wanted a fresh start to become a better person and mother. But Francis accused her of lying, suggesting that she just wanted to leave to find someone specific. His accusations angered Joshua, who told his father not to talk to his mother like that. When Francis responded harshly, Iris intervened and said she just wanted to get away from him. She couldn't imagine living with him any longer. She was convinced there was still time to save her children. She then demanded that he hand over the map, but he remained silent. He eventually pulled it out of his pocket and burned it in front of the entire family. She tried to take it from him, and in the struggle, she hit him. The children saw that they were trapped with an unstable man. The next day, Francis went outside, and Iris noticed Lucas reading. She sat beside him and read to him the moral of the story about a liar trying to get the entire village's attention. Lucas observed that the boy in the story was just a liar. Meanwhile, Francis heard gunshots and strange noises, but no one saw him. He returned to the house carrying a tree trunk and a chain, determined to protect his family from the zombies he claimed were surrounding the house. But Joshua didn't understand the logic, as no zombies had been seen for weeks. He suspected that Francis just wanted to keep them trapped. He accused his father of abandoning the car and destroying the map, behaving like his own parents when they used to lock him up as a child. His son's words affected him, and in a fit of rage, he slapped him. The clock struck his cheek as well, and he began to insult him harshly, justifying his actions as merely trying to protect them from the outside. Suddenly, they heard a knock on the door and someone asking for help. The person introduced himself as a wounded soldier with nowhere to go. Joshua saw him through the window, and before his father could shoot, he opened the door. The man showed no signs of being bitten and said he was from Delta Camp. After a day and a half, he explained that his unit had been attacked by zombies in the city and that he was the only survivor. Francis insisted that there were many zombies outside, but the soldier replied that it depended on the area. The soldier explained that he had only survived thanks to a stranger who told him about this house before being attacked by zombies. Iris realized that her husband had lied to her about Diego. Francis had no comment and ordered the soldier to leave, but the children begged him to help, so he decided to lock the soldier in the basement for safety. At night, Joshua woke his mother and told her he planned to search for his uncle Diego. His idea stemmed from the soldier's comment that something might have happened to Diego, but Joshua was upset with his father and admitted that he felt his father didn't see him at all. He revealed that he knew Francis wasn't his biological father, but wished Francis would understand that he would always consider him his father. Iris told him that he couldn't leave Lucas alone. Joshua asked her to tell his brother to be brave. In the morning, Iris and Lucas were having breakfast with the soldier, who was respectful to the entire family, even Francis. When Francis noticed Joshua was missing and saw the doors open, he realized he had left. He returned to the kitchen and killed the innocent soldier in front of his son. He demanded that Iris not leave him. Then he violently struck her with a hammer. When she woke up, she found herself locked in the basement with Lucas. When she saw her son unharmed, she began calling for Francis, who was sitting at the table calmly eating next to the soldier's corpse. He noticed the dog had returned to the house. After a while, he opened the basement door and appeared wearing the soldier's uniform, holding a small piece of meat to feed them. But Iris stopped Lucas from touching the strange meat, which made Francis even angrier. He told them that when he was a child, his father would get angry if he didn't finish his food. As he spoke, Iris took the opportunity to hide a knife and pretended to agree with him, telling him she understood and that no one was waiting for her outside. He responded that he needed her too, but he took the knife she had hidden and said he couldn't trust her anymore. Iris lost hope and began searching for a way out. She managed to remove a wooden plank but fell to the ground and lost consciousness. Hours later, she woke up. Lucas asked her if they were going to die or if he would become like the boy in the story. Suddenly, Francis was startled by the sound of his son's scream. He ran to the basement to ask what was happening, but Iris seized the opportunity to stab him and lock him inside. She escaped with Lucas. Despite her efforts, her reality began to blur with painful memories. She returned to the house, gathered a few items, and removed the chains from the door. Francis screamed from the basement. When they stepped outside, they found Diego, who had become a zombie, eating the soldier's corpse. He kept repeating the word "run," but it reached her. The commotion brought Francis back to the present. He tried to go out to help them. Iris tried to avoid the bite. Lucas distracted Diego, who grabbed him, but his mother pulled him away, fought Diego, and placed a chair between them. Francis came out of the basement just in time and took down his brother to save them. He blamed her for letting Diego into the house and putting the family in danger. He was about to attack her, but Lucas, with a trembling voice, said his uncle had bitten him. His mother tried to help him and took a sickle to stop the infection. Francis stood frozen. She prepared everything she needed to save her son from turning into a zombie. She told Francis to go get the car because the boy needed a blood transfusion from the hospital. Francis ran quickly across the farm until he reached the bridge where he found Joshua struggling to breathe, only able to say his name. But his son thought he had turned into a zombie because of his appearance and was about to shoot him. He fell to his knees, trying to apologize, but there was nothing more he could do. He was forced to mourn his father's death. He returned to the car and went back home, finding Iris singing to her son in her arms, unaware that this was her son who had returned. And that's the end of the movie. See you in a new summary, and thank you for watching.